Hey. So glad that you are here. Welcome to Mornings in the Word. I'm your girl, Pastor Courage Molina with Bold Faith Community Church. Today is day 97. We're going to be reading Ruth chapters 1 through 4. If this is your first time, welcome. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so that you get notified and hit the notification button. Be sure to subscribe and then hit the notification button so that you are notified every time that we have a new video. And we're here Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. EST with Mornings in the Word. And then on Saturday, it's when we get our weekly message, 8 a.m. And we are live streaming. We live in the chat. We lit. We love for you to join us. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button, and let's get into the reading for today. We are day 97. We're going to be reading Ruth 1 through 4. New Living Translation. First of all, right out the gate, I'm like, what does this say? So this is the entire book of Ruth that we're reading today. We're going to get through the entire book of Ruth today. That's how that's going to work out. All right. I got my water. Let's get into it. Hold on. In the days when the judges ruled in Israel, which we just finished, right? Excuse me. We know how those days were. A severe famine came upon the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah left his home and went to live in the country of Moab, taking his wife and 2 sons with him. The man's name was Elimelech. I feel like what? Elimelech. I don't think that's right. But y'all just bear with me. We're going to keep it moving. And his wife was Naomi. Their 2 sons were Malone and Kilion. They were Ephraimites and from Bethlehem in the land of Judah. And when they reached Moab, they settled there. Then Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women. One married a woman named Orpah, and the other married a woman named Ruth. But about 10 years later, both Malone and Kilion died. This left Naomi alone without her 2 sons or her husband. Then Naomi heard in Moab that the land had blessed his people in Judah by giving them good crops again. So Naomi and her daughters-in-law got ready to leave Moab to return to her homeland. With her 2 daughters-in-law, she set out from the place where she had been living, and they took the road that would lead them back to Judah. But on the way, Naomi said to her 2 daughters-in-law, "Go back to your mother's homes, and may the Lord reward you for your kindness to your husbands and to me. May the Lord bless you with the security of another marriage." Then she kissed them goodbye, and they all broke down and wept. "No," they said, "we want to go with you to your people." But Naomi replied, "Why should you go on with me? Can I still give birth to other sons who would grow up to be your husbands? No, my daughters, return to your parents' homes, for I am too old to marry again. And even if it were possible, I were to get married tonight and bear sons, then what? Would you wait for them to grow up and refuse to marry someone else? No, of course not, my daughters. Things are far more bitter for me than you know, because the Lord himself raised his fist against me." And again they wept together, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung tightly to Naomi. "Look," Naomi said to her, "your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. You should do the same." But Ruth replied, Do not ask me to leave you and turn back. Wherever you go, I will go. Wherever you live, I will live. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. Wherever you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord punish me severely if I allow anything but death to separate us." When Naomi saw that Ruth was determined to go with her, she said nothing more. So the 2 of them continued on their journey. When they came to Bethlehem, the entire town was excited by their arrival. "Is it really Naomi?" the woman asked. "Don't call me Naomi," she responded. "Instead, call me Mara, for the Almighty has made my life very bitter for me. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me home empty. Why call me Naomi when the Lord has caused me to suffer, and the Almighty has sent such tragedy upon me?" So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by her daughter-in-law Ruth, the young Moabite woman. They arrived in Bethlehem in late spring at the beginning of the barley harvest. So at this time, when there are no judges or whatever, they went out. Her husband went out, and married her or whatever. And then they had kids, and the kids married Moabite women. But the husband died, the son died. So now Naomi has no family left except for these daughter-in-laws. And tradition, culture would have that if she had other sons, that they would then marry their sons, marry her other sons, right? To preserve the family name and to preserve the name of the son and all of those things. But she ain't got no more kids. So now she's going back. She's basically gonna be destitute without a husband or children to take care of her. I don't know if she's going back to her mama house, if her mom is still alive or what, but she's going back to the land of her people to figure out what she's going to do to maybe be taken care of by the people of Israel, because there is supposed to be an allotment set aside for widows, right? They're supposed to be taking care of widows and things like that. That's how the Lord has set it up when he set up how Israel's to live set apart. And so Naomi is like, y'all go ahead about y'all business. But the one girl, Ruth, is like, nah, I'm gonna stick with you. We about to go together. Whatever gonna go down, I'm gonna go down with you. I am still your family. We are still family. This does not change anything. So they go back. People are surprised to see Naomi. They haven't seen her in a while. And Naomi kind of got an attitude because she feel a type of way. I'm not mad at her feeling away, right? She left and she had a husband. Now she said she left full, but she left because there was famine, right? So she left, her and her husband and the kids and all that. And now she's coming back, no kids, no husband. It's very sad. Chapter 2. Now there was a wealthy and influential man in Bethlehem named Boaz, who was a relative of Naomi's husband, Elimelech. One day, Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, "Let me go out into the harvest fields to pick up the stalks of grain left behind anyone who was kind enough to let me do it." Naomi replied, "All right, my daughter, go ahead." So Ruth went out to gather grain behind the harvesters, and as it happened, she found herself working in a field that belonged to Boaz, the relative of her father-in-law, Elimelech. We're going to just call him that. It's barley harvest. So they're harvesting barley. And if you remember, way back when we were reading things that were not that exciting, and they were talking about the harvest, and when they go through in 6 years, and the seventh year do this, and don't do that, and don't do this, and don't go back a second and third time to glean. Leave what you leave for the people who don't have, so that they can have something. Don't take everything. And so because of God's provision and the way he set up Israel, now in this present day, they're going to be able to be taken care of, essentially, because these people are going to follow the laws that was set up by the Lord, the way of living that was set up by the Lord. And so as a result, they're going to be able to go in and get some barley and work and not be messed with, right? Verse 4, while she was there, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you," he said. "The Lord bless you," the harvesters replied. Then Boaz asked his foreman, "Who is that young woman over there? Who does she belong to?" And the foreman replied, "She is the young woman from Moab who came back with Naomi. She asked me this morning if she could gather grain behind the harvesters. She has been hard at work ever since, except for a few minutes rest in the shelter." Boaz went over and said to Ruth, "Listen, my daughter, stay right here with us when you gather grain. Don't go to any other fields. Stay right behind the young women working in my field. See which part of the field they are harvesting, and then follow them. I have warned the young men not to treat you roughly, and when you are thirsty, help yourself to the water they have drawn from the well." Ruth fell at his feet and thanked him warmly. "What have I done to deserve such kindness?" she asked. "I'm only a foreigner." "Yes, I know," Boaz replied, "but I also know about everything you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. I've heard how you left your father and mother in your own land to live here among complete strangers. May the Lord your God of Israel, under whose wing you have come to take refuge, reward you fully for what you have done." "I hope I continue to please you, sir," she replied. "You have comforted me by speaking so kindly to me, even though I'm not one of your workers." At mealtime, Boaz called to her, "Come over here and help yourself to some food. You can dip your bread into the sour wine." So she sat with his harvesters, and Boaz gave her some roasted grain to eat. She ate all she wanted and still had some left over. When Ruth went back to work again, Boaz ordered his young men, "Let her gather grain right among the sheaves without stopping her, and pull out some heads of barley from the bundles and drop them on purpose for her. Let her pick them up, and don't give her a hard time." So Ruth gathered barley there all day, and when she beat out the grain that evening, it filled an entire basket. She carried it back into town, and she showed it to her mother-in-law. Ruth also gave her the roasted grain and that was left over from her meal. Where did you gather all this grain today? Naomi asked. Where did you work? May the Lord bless the one who helped you. So Ruth told her mother-in-law about the man in whose field she had worked. She said, the man I work with today is named Boaz. May the Lord bless him, Naomi told her daughter-in-law. He is showing his kindness to us as well as to your dead husband. That man is one of our closest relatives, one of our family redeemers. Then Ruth said, what's more, Boaz even told me to come back and stay with his harvesters until the entire harvest is completed. Good, Naomi exclaimed. Do as he said, my daughter. Stay with his young women right through the whole harvest. You might be harassed in other fields, but you'll be safe with him. So Ruth worked alongside the women in Boaz's field and gathered grain with them until the end of the barley harvest. Then she continued working with them through the wheat harvest in the early summer. And all the while she lived with her mother-in-law. All right, chapter 2 is so good. So many gems in chapter 2. Ruth went to work. Ruth worked in the field. She needed to provide for herself and her mother-in-law. So she went and she worked hard. She worked so hard that people noticed that she was a hard worker, that she only took a couple breaks. Boaz came. She stood out because she was a foreigner. I'm sure she looked different from the rest of the people there. So she stood out, and he inquired about her, and her reputation preceded her that she was a hard worker. It's difficult for people for your reputation to precede you if people can't see you working hard, just saying. And so her reputation preceded her. And then Boaz, the beautiful thing about Boaz is that as a man, we know how this ends already, right? We know that they end up married. Spoiler alert. How he is providing for her and covering her. He is her protection. He is providing provision for her, allowing her to do her thing. Still, he ain't out there doing her work for her. He not out there saying, well, you could just sit home and do. He is providing for her by allowing her to be there, by giving instruction to the men to protect her and to not harass her, and by giving her instruction on where she should be and who she should be out, hanging out with. Okay? He is doing for her because he can see her doing for herself. Chapter 3, minding my business. One day, Naomi said to Ruth, my daughter, it's time that I found a permanent home for you so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and it's not a coincidence that Boaz is a close relative. It's not a coincidence that she would be in there. It's not so happens. It's as the Lord would have it, right? Because the Lord is intentional, especially if you understand whose family line, do you know what I mean? Like she's from or she gives birth into, then you know it's intentional. All right. Let me go back to verse 1, chapter 3. One day Naomi said to Ruth, my daughter, it is time that I found a permanent home for you so that you will be provided for. Boaz is a close relative of ours, and he's been very kind by letting you gather grain with his young women. Tonight he will be winnowing barley at the threshing floor. Now do as I tell you. Take a bath, put on perfume, and dress in your nicest clothes. Then go to the threshing floor, but don't let Boaz see you until he has finished eating and drinking. Be sure to notice where he lies down. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down there. He will tell you what to do. I will do everything you say, Ruth replied. So she went down to the threshing floor that night and followed the instructions of her mother-in-law. She got dressed. She's smelling good. And she's doing it the way her mother-in-law told her to do it. After Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he lay down at the far end of the pile of grain and went to sleep. Then Ruth came quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down. Around midnight, Boaz suddenly woke up and turned over. He was surprised to find a woman lying at his feet. Who are you? He asked. I'm your servant, Ruth, she replied. Spread the corner of your covering over me, for you are my family redeemer. The Lord bless you, my daughter, Boaz exclaimed. You are showing even more family loyalty now than you did before, for you have not gone after a younger man, whether rich or poor. Now don't worry about a thing, my daughter. I will do what is necessary, for everyone in town knows you are a virtuous woman. But while it's true that I am one of your family redeemers, there is another man who is more closely related to you than I am. Stay here tonight, and in the morning I will talk to him. If he's willing to redeem you, very well, let him marry you. But if he's not willing, then as surely as the Lord lives, I will redeem you myself. Now lie down here until morning. So Ruth lay at Boaz's feet until morning, but she got up before it was light enough for people to recognize each other. For Boaz had said, "No one must know that a woman was here at the threshing floor." Then Boaz said to her, "Bring your cloak and spread it out." He measured 6 scoops of barley into the cloak and placed it on her back. Then he returned to the town. When Ruth went back to her mother in law, Naomi asked, "What happened, my daughter?" Ruth told Naomi everything Boaz had done for her, and she added, "He gave me these 6 scoops of barley and said, 'Don't go back to your mother in law empty handed.'" Then Naomi said to her, "Just be patient, my daughter, until we hear what happens. The man won't rest until he has settled things." Naomi went down. I know Ruth went down. There's like this, I don't know, this thing that people say, oh, Ruth went down there, which kind of like to imply that maybe there was some sex that went on. There wasn't any sex that went on. There's no reason for us to believe that they had sex, even if that's what happened in those situations. He's calling her a woman of virtue. She went down there to let him know that she was available to him, that she wanted him, that she was open to him being her redeemer, whatever. He appreciated that, which shows that he's older, right? He's older man, that she's probably really good looking. There are other men that she could have tried to get with, but she's still staying faithful to the family and the family line, which is a beautiful thing. Chapter 4, Boaz went to the town gate, and she's a foreigner, by the way. Boaz went to the town gate and took a seat there. Just then, the family redeemer he had mentioned came by. So Boaz called out to him, "Come over here and sit down, friend. I want to talk to you." So they sat down together. Then Boaz called 10 leaders from the town and asked them to sit as witnesses. And Boaz said to the family redeemer, "You know Naomi, who came back from Moab. She is selling the land that belonged to our relative Elimelech. I thought I should speak to you about it so that you can redeem it if you wish. If you want the land, then buy it here in the presence of these witnesses. But if you don't want it, let me know right away because I am next in line to redeem it after you." The man replied, "All right, I'll redeem it." Then Boaz told him, "Of course, your purchase of the land from Naomi also requires that you marry Ruth, the Moabite widow. That way she can have children who will carry on her husband's name and keep the land in the family." "Then I can't redeem it," the family redeemer replied, "because this might endanger my own estate. You redeem the land, I cannot do it." Now, in those days, it was the custom in Israel for anyone transferring a right of purchase to remove his sandal and hand it to the other party. This publicly validated the transaction. So the other family redeemer drew off his sandal as he said to Boaz, "You buy the land." Then Boaz said to the elder and to the crowd standing around, "You are witnesses that today I have bought from Naomi all the property of Elimelech, Kilion, and Malone, and with the land I have acquired Ruth, the Moabite widow of Malone, to be my wife. This way she can have a son to carry on the family name of her dead husband and to inherit the family property here in his hometown. You are all witnesses today." Then the elders and all the people standing in the gate replied, "We are witnesses. May the Lord make this woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, from whom all the nations of Israel descended. May you prosper in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem. And may the Lord give you descendants by this young woman who will be like those of our ancestor Perez, the son of Tamar in Judah." So Boaz took Ruth into his home, and she became his wife. When he slept with her, the Lord enabled her to become pregnant, and she gave birth to a son. Then the women of the town said to Naomi, "Praise the Lord, who has now provided a redeemer for your family. May this child be famous in Israel. May he restore your youth and care for you in your old age, for he is the son of your daughter-in-law who loves you and has been better to you than 7 sons." Naomi took the baby and cuddled him to her breast, and she cared for him as if he were her own. The neighborhood women said, "Now at last Naomi has a son again," and they named him Obed. He became the father of Jesse and the grandfather of David. This is the genealogical record of their ancestor Perez. Perez was the father of Hezron. Hezron was the father of Ram. Ram was the father of Amminadab. Amminadab was the father of Nahshon. Nahshon was the father of Salmon. Salmon was the father of Boaz. Boaz was the father of Obed. Obed was the father of Jesse, and Jesse was the father of David. That's it. And y'all know who comes from David. Okay, Jesus. So here we are again, Moabite foreign woman being used in the line that God has for the children of Israel and the world, right? For the world, joy to the world. because this family line will be the line that leads to Jesus. Jesus will come through David's family line, and these are David's ancestors, right? Absolutely love it. Love how he redeemed her, married. Look at Naomi, feeling good, celebrating. This is a really beautiful one. I wonder what it is that God's been calling you to do, what work He's called you to do in this season. And just by showing up to do that work, it's going to put you in a position to get the blessing that you really need, right? Because even though they were doing the work, what she really needed was a husband. What she really needed was covering and protection, right? What she really needed was children to take care of her. And just by going to, show up, work hard, take care of herself, take care of her mother-in-law, by wanting to be kind, because she probably could have went back. She could have went back home, right? As a result, there was a blessing that came to Ruth because of her kindness to Naomi. Hope this blessed you. Come back, join us. That's it for Ruth. Tomorrow we'll be on Samuel. First Samuel. We'll be starting in Samuel. So I hope you'll come back and join us. As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe if you haven't, and tell a friend about how you've been getting mornings in the Word, how it's been changing your life. All right. I love y'all. Till next time.